So I know a lot of the times when people have a fragrance that they're really interested in purchasing, but the price is too steep for them, they often seek an alternative or a clone or an inspired expression. And that's pretty much what the company Dossier specializes in. This one is actually their version of Black Orchid by Tom Ford. Their version is called Spicy Orchid. I'm excited to tell you all about it, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin my fragrance review on Spicy Orchid by Dossier, I do want to mention that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, if you like fragrance reviews here on YouTube, but also top 10 lists, giveaways, unboxings, and more, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. All you have to do is click on that red button in the corner. And of course, while you're at it, make sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell icon. So here we have a fragrance by the company Dossier. This one is called Spicy Orchid, not too different from Black Orchid. And of course, this one is a clone or an inspired expression of Black Orchid. And I actually have my bottle here, and I made sure to do a side-by-side and spray them. I actually have a few bottles of Black Orchid. I have this one, and then I also have the Lalique bottle, which I think retailed for like $995. It's like super concentrated, smells awesome. And the first thing that I noticed about this is how dark the liquid is inside the bottle. And so, of course, that could be a number of things. It could be the concentration of certain ingredients. It can also be the vanilla that is used. A lot of varieties of vanilla have that warm ambery hue to them. And so this one does come across quite strong, especially once I sprayed it on the test strip. I did about 2 or 3 healthy sprays on this, and I can smell it in the entire room, and only subsequently did I actually spray the original to do a side-by-side, but I'm very excited to make the comparison for you guys. And so Black Orchid is a perfume that contains orchid, of course, but it also contains cinnamon, ylang-ylang, vanilla, plum, incense. It's a very complex fragrance, as a matter of fact, a little patchouli in the base, kind of veering in Oriental territory. Oriental perfumes are categorized as, fragrances that contain large numbers of spices and vanilla and patchouli. And that's pretty much what's going on in this fragrance. And so they have a really cool deal going on at the moment where if you, and this is, I think, something that they've always done, is they will actually send you a sample of the fragrance in addition to your purchase, which I think this one is only like 29 or 39 bucks, somewhere in that wheelhouse, so it's incredibly affordable. But they'll send you a sample, and you can use up the entire sample. If you don't like the fragrance, you can actually return it, get a full refund, no questions asked. I'm actually going to leave the information down below so you can learn a little bit more about the company and what their policies are and how they operate. But in any case, I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this fragrance. Let's start things off with the presentation. So this fragrance opens up with a bit of freshness, right? You have a little bit of that mandarin orange in the opening. And I kind of like the introduction because it's a very complicated note breakdown. I think whenever you talk to somebody and they bring up Black Orchid, or you bring up Black Orchid, the first thing that gets mentioned is that truffle note. And so obviously truffle comes from a type of mushroom, and if you've ever had like truffle french fries or truffle oil in your food, it has a very peculiar but also very specific smell that I am all too familiar with because I have consumed it in the past. And you kind of get a little bit of that, but it's really not the star player in this fragrance. You really are going to get that melange of florals, that floral bouquet, if you will. And you have that tropical nature from the ylang-ylang. You also have that orchid-like quality, which I think is a fantasy note, but you have that ylang-ylang and jasmine thing going on in here, but you also have that intense warmth and that richness and that sweetness that is coming from a lot of the ingredients that are lingering in the base. So you have the vanilla, you have the patchouli, you also have that cinnamon spice in the opening, which kind of creates this bridge between the sweetness in the opening and the sweetness that you're gonna get in the dry down. And of course, even as I'm describing the smell, I'm specifically talking about what is emanating from this test strip, which is actually the Dossier version, not the original. And so you get that sweetness in the opening, you get that vanillic heart and base of the fragrance, and it's coming across loud and clear. So they definitely did not skimp on the vanilla that's in here. You're getting a little bit of that green quality, which I'm guessing is coming from the patchouli, but nothing about it is too dark or deep or pungent or aggressive, you can tell that it's really working in harmony with the ingredients in the base, like the frankincense or whatever incense is in here. I'm not sure if it's frankincense, but whatever incense is in here, and whatever other woods, which are kind of silent players in this composition, but I do feel like they bolster up the composition in a pretty significant and pretty hearty way. But it's really all about the plum, that resinous quality, the vanilla, the oriental facets, the cinnamon, the ylang-ylang. So I actually sprayed the original here because I wanted to do a side-by-side, and I might as well put the bottle up here too so you can see it. So this is the Dossier, and this is the original. Now here's the thing, are they 100% similar? No, they are not. I'm not going to say they're 100% similar because I am pretty confident in my ability to discern which one is which if someone were to mix these up. Now, what I can say is that with the original Black Orchid, I think there's more of that truffle note. And I didn't read that anywhere in the note breakdown as far as I remember. No, it's not written in here at all. And I don't even know if the truffle note is necessarily a part of the original note breakdown, or if it is indeed a fantasy note, or if it is a real note. I'm really not entirely sure if they actually steam distilled the essence of the truffle mushroom. But I definitely get a quality in the original that I would say has that truffle vibe. And I know that if you did any research on what inspired Tom Ford to create this perfume, it's something that is a little bit on the lewd side. And so maybe the absence of that is a good thing, especially if you're familiar with the narrative. So what I can say is that the Dossier version comes across a little bit smoother, without necessarily compromising on the sweetness, the warmth, the resinous appeal of the fragrance. Now, I think if somebody asked the question, which one is better for your wallet, I think the Dossier version 100%. If someone were to ask the question, which one is better in terms of the smell, I really think it's all subjective. I think they're 90% similar, 95% similar, and that has been the case with all of the Dossier fragrances that I own. I have their version of Versace Eros, and I feel like that's super similar. I have their version of Rose 31, and that is incredibly similar. I should also mention that my Rose 31 bottle is many years old, and so it has macerated for a long time, so it's super strong. But in the case of this fragrance, I actually find it to be very well polished, very well put together, very well and expertly reverse engineered, to the point where, yes, in fact, it does smell very, very close to the original. I would say maybe like 90 to 95% similar, albeit not 100% similar. But personally, I think they're really, really similar. I am a fan of both. I will continue to wear both. I have the real thing, so, you know, if it's like a really special occasion, I don't mind wearing the real thing. But of course, you know, there are some frugal consumers out there, and there are some, you know, financially sensitive consumers out there, and so for those I would certainly recommend the Dossier alternative, as I do find it to be very close to the original Black Orchid by Tom Ford. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, I mean, of course, it's not a unique fragrance because it is a clone, but the overall smell is very pleasant. And like I said, with the absence of that truffle note, I think that this one might, for a lot of people, come across as a little bit smoother. And so I can see this having a very pleasant aroma as far as it pertains to a lot of other people's tastes. In terms of the longevity, I got about 7 to 8 hours on my skin, so it is very long lasting. The projection was great for the first hour and a half. Like I said, I sprayed the test strip 2 or 3 times, very healthy sprays, and I was able to smell it in the entire room. In terms of the versatility, I think this is a special occasion kind of a fragrance. I think it's totally unisex. I know some people say Black Orchid is feminine leaning. I personally find it to be totally unisex. I just think that there are a lot of guys out there that have an aversion to certain floral ingredients, and I totally respect that, but I personally find it to be unisex. I think this one can work really well when it's a little bit cooler outside, maybe not in the dead of summer, so maybe not in July or August or something like that, but any other month of the year should serve you quite well. And I can see this one being worn comfortably by somebody who's a little bit older, as opposed to like a teenager or a college student or something like that, unless of course it's a night out, you're going to a bar or a club, or you're partying or something like that, and you're dressed to impress. I think that that would match that physical wardrobe. And in terms of the presentation, I think it's rather simple, very minimalistic, and that goes hand in hand with the affordability of the product. And so my final verdict on this one is exactly what I said before. If you are a fan of Tom Ford's Black Orchid, you're looking for a really, really inexpensive alternative to it, and you wouldn't mind compromising on having a product that is 90 to 95% similar, albeit not 100% similar, I would certainly recommend that you go for Spicy Orchid by Dossier. I think it's a really solid clone. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching today. I really hope that this video found you well, and I hope that you took something of value from this video. If indeed you did, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Again, all you have to do is click on that red button, and while you're at it, make sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell. Thanks again. Love you guys. See you soon. Bye.